The Comfortably Zoned Radio Network presents Weighted Donuts with your hosts Wayne Unger and Craig Steer.
Hello and welcome to this week's show of Weighted Donuts. I'm Wayne Unger, and unfortunately my co-host Craig Steer cannot be with us tonight, but we have a special guest. We have New York Post sports columnist Kevin Kernan. Kevin, thank you for being on the show, and thrilled to have you.
Well, it's great to be here, Wayne. It's been a busy month, actually 6 weeks. Been running around since the end of September, but it's finally over, and now everybody's all excited about the off season. But to be quite frank, I think too much is made this time of year for all league guys going left and right, moving around. You see how it happens later on, but I think it's a little too. It's overkill now, and I think in some ways, I think it affects the game a little bit like football is overkill now. It's just too much football. So you've got to have a down period of baseball, too, to kind of really appreciate all the good stuff. And after the World Series we've just been through, I think we need to just savor that a little bit before we, go crazy where Cespedes is going to wind up. Because wherever Cespedes winds up, which will be the Mets anyway, but he'll be making so much money. He'll be on his own thing and doing his own thing, and we'll move on to next year. But there were some great lessons from this World Series, and it's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. So tell me something. Well, I'll go first. Let's go back to preseason. My picks were Toronto, Detroit, and Houston, and I had the Yankees and Texas in the wild card. In the National League, I had Washington, Chicago, and San Francisco, and I had the Mets and the Cardinals in the wild card, and I had Houston beating the Cubs in the World Series. I hope you did better than I did.
That's not bad. That's not bad what you did. I mean, it's all a crapshoot. I mean, last year I had the Mets in the World Series. Nobody else did. But, a lot of it depends, Wayne, on what they do at the trade deadline. And the Cubs went out and got Chapman, and that was a difference maker. I mean, I'm just going to flip it on you for 1 second. Say the Giants get Chapman, and I begged the Giants people I know, saying, you got to trade for Chapman or Miller. And they just obviously didn't, in their mind, they didn't have resources to get it done. But if the Giants wound up with Chapman, they would have won. They would have. And those no doubt in my mind that they would have beaten the Cubs, and because that was their Achilles heel. I felt at the end of the year, I thought the Giants were very strong, and even the Mets, despite all their problems and losing their starting pitching, they made some great advancements as a team too, and they could have been in there with some adjustments. But we're really seeing the team that really makes the moves in at the trade deadline to really go over the top to get the players, because that and besides making the team better, this is what no one gets unless you played the game. It lifts the spirit of all the other guys. That's what happened with the Indians. I talked to Kipnis about this. I talked to many players. Once they got Andrew Miller, it showed them that management was all in. That's a $98 million payroll club, and for them to do what they did, and really, to be quite frank, Wayne, they should have won the World Series. They blew it in every way. I don't care how you say it. They made a nice round. They ran out of gas. But the other team was better. No way in heck they should have lost those last 3 games. No way. It was a terrible job by them. Trevor Bauer, the pitch that changed the World Series was the fastball that Trevor Bauer sent to get me over fastball to Chris Bryant that became a home run that tied the game. And that was, to me, that was the pivotal thing. That gave the Cubs life, and they didn't stop from there. So there's a lot going on here. And but again, it's great to make those picks early. Who knows how they're going to make out? I know we're already thinking about next year. Obviously, the Cubs are going to be right back in there. They have the talent. I don't think they'll have Chapman back, but they'll have the talent, and we'll see where it goes. But these are the moves that make a team that make a difference.
My co-host wanted me to ask you if you were totally shocked by Schwarber being inserted into the playoff roster.
No, that's a very good question. And no, I wasn't, because this kid, if you know anything about this kid, I think his father was a policeman. He's a real gamer. Anything he could do to get back, and he worked hard all year. Again, talking to these players. He was in the dugout. Rizzo said he was in the dugout. He's with them every home game. He's looking at video, and there's such a if the surgery's done right, and if things go right, you can make this kind of recovery. They were careful with him not to put him in the field, which I think was probably the best move. But this kid wanted to play, and that's the difference. And that's one of the great things. I know Jason McLeod well. He's the director of scouting for the Cubs, and he was with the Padres way back when I spent 10 years in San Diego, just so the listeners know. And Jason was like a pitching coach for like Lake Elsinore when I first met him. The Class A ball. And he surrounds himself with good people. He wanted Schwarber so badly, not because of Schwarber's talents, but because of Schwarber's ability and his ability to lift other teammates and play hard and do everything right, and also his desire to win. That's the sixth tool right now, and that's where a lot of these nerds are having trouble putting together teams, because they can't quite figure out the heart factor on these players, and some of these players inside can be dogs at times. And Schwarber is the complete opposite. He wanted to win when he comes back. It kind of goes back to my point I just made about the trade. When Schwarber comes back with that miracle comeback, which is a great question from your partner, when he comes back with that miracle comeback, that lifts the spirits of everybody in there. Like, okay. I remember Rizzo telling me, he said, we talk about winning the World Series every day since spring training. Every bus ride we take, everything we do together as a team, that's what we talk about. And when Schwarber did that, and then not only did that, but then, put on a great at-bat. That at-bat he had against Andrew Miller when he walked, was just phenomenal, one of his first at-bats back. And when he did that, that lifted that team, gave them saying, hey, we can do this. And, of course, the winning rally. Now some of my points there, Wayne, may be a little I may mix up some things in that Game 7, because I don't know if, just to let the listeners know, Game 7, my assignment was to run around Chicago, and everywhere from Wrigleyville to Harry Carey's to Billy Goat Tavern, to get the feel of the city when the up and down of that game. Win or lose, I was going to write a column about how this impacts Chicago. So there were sometimes I was in cabs or running around when things were going on, but when Schwarber started that rally, I was in Harry Carey's, and the place went crazy, and that lifted them over the top.
One thing I noticed about Schwarber also, his timing was there, and he actually looked he looked like he improved. There was a small sample, but you know what? When you were talking about Andrew Miller, he looked like he was a lot more comfortable against a lefty pitcher, which I think bodes big for next year for Chicago.
Yeah, he was basically he was playing with house money, so he realized, hey, I'm back. I never thought I'd be back, and he did make those improvements. He said, we talked to him before one of those games, and he said he took 1,300 pitches off a pitching machine that simulated left-handed pitching, in the last week to get ready, or the last few days to get ready. So this was a guy that put in the work, that got it done, and then has the talent. It's those magical things. You got to have the talent too, and he really made it happen, and he. To me, he was as much a difference maker as Chapman for the Cubs team. So at the end of the day, the Cubs wound up with Chapman and Schwarber, when they needed them most. And how many teams can add those two pieces? And that's one of the reasons why the Yankees wanted Schwarber in the deal for Chapman, but couldn't get him. But this kid is I remember last year, Theo telling me that they were when they would go out on scouting trips. Theo Epstein, the president. Well, I've known since he was assistant PR guy in San Diego. They were writing lineups down on napkins in hotel bars at 2 a.m. if they had seen Schwarber playing college and things like that. That's how excited they were about the potential of getting Schwarber. So So, and now that he's healthy, the problem is now in the future, where are you going to play the guy? Because to me, it's very difficult in the outfield for him. He may get hurt again. One more knee injury could be the end of his deal, so he's got to be very careful. But, they'll figure it out. They're geniuses over there. That's lucky parents, so they'll get it done.
Well, I think he's safer in the outfield than he is behind the plate. So
he's
I guess
he's got to play a limited outfield. He can't get in the way of the other outfielders. And again, that's what happened to the Indians too. Let's not overlook this. I mean, yeah, the Cubs did a great job, but when their center fielder botched the easiest ball in the world, hit to him, didn't go after it, took a long route. Nick on the kid, and then messed up with Lonnie Chisenhall. I mean, the Cubs were handed some incredible gifts of bad baseball at that point.
The
Indians played great baseball all the way through.
That was the gift. But to give a little credit to the Cubs as well, it seems as though they didn't seem as tight at the plate in Game 6 and 7. They seemed very tight at the plate most in the first 5 games, and that's why I felt as though they weren't hitting like they should, except for Game 2. They were kind of tight. My partner
super tight.
had another.
Yeah, they were super tight.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that was the difference too. That once they relaxed, when they got a few breaks, things went their way. And again, I go back to the, I've seen enough baseball. I mean, I'll argue with anybody that I know the game as well as certainly any writer in this country. I've covered sports for 40 years. I played college baseball. I've had the ability to talk to Tony Gwynn 10 years straight about hitting every day. So I'll put and also have a feel for the game. I'll put my thoughts up against anyone else. When Bauer gave up that home run to Chris Bryant, I turned to the people that were around me. I said, "That's it. Cubs are going to win the series." And that's what happened. They relaxed, just like you said, and they were a whole different team.
Yes. My partner had one other question. He said, "Why do you think Soler had no playing time?"
Because they had other guys that were better. It's really that simple, And
okay.
Once you get Schwarber back into the mix, things change, and they really, Baez, they totally gave Baez all that playing time, and you got to go with the team. The guys were hot at that point, and don't forget, Baez was a draft pick of Tim Wilkin and Jim Henry, who are no longer with the Cubs, of course. Jim is assistant with the Yankees, and he was a great draft pick. I think in the 11 draft, I believe it was, or the 10 draft. He was taken right before Lindor, and Lindor is a great player too. So they had more talent to pick from. So that's why Soler, just he couldn't break that lineup. I really think it's that simple.
And do you think the Cubs trade Soler in the off season?
Probably. They'll probably save him maybe for a trade, maybe at midway or something like that. We'll see how it goes with Schwarber, if he gets hurt or whatever. He's a good guy. It's always good to have talent. And also the other thing here, I think we saw it in Baez a little bit. They did a nice job of nurturing Baez and getting Baez focused on playing his game for the team and not for himself. And I think maybe if Soler, this is the other thing too. This is what sometimes what the analytical end doesn't understand. Say Soler spends a whole winter now working at the poor parts of his game, whichever they may be, and all of a sudden he comes back a better player. Then, because he didn't get that playing time and he wants that playing time in big time, then all of a sudden they got themselves even a better player. Maybe they can trade someone else, So there's all kinds of X factors about getting better as a team goes on, and that's so important as well. That's something that, it's not just looking at numbers and saying this guy's going to project. Well, what happens if this guy gets better? Or on the reverse of that, what happens if this guy gets worse? So that's what makes baseball such a fascinating game. And I think, and this year, I think the Indians, at some point, too, one other point on the Indians, again, my favorite play in the whole World Series was when Rajai Davis hit the 2-run home run. Not because he hit a two-man home run off of Chapman and kind of almost created a miracle and said, here we go again with the Bligo curse, but because he choked way up the bat to get the bat to where he needed to get the bat to against the guy that throws that hard. So many players are just stuck in their own showcase swing lives that they don't make adjustments. And the team, I'm going to say right now, I'm going on record right now, Wayne, the teams that start making adjustments in spring training to the shift, to other things, like Lester, for example. How in the world the Indians did not attack Lester with bunt after bunt after bunt is beyond me. Because the guy, he cannot throw to a base unless it's underhanded. So it almost has to be, there has to be an attack level with teams now where they say, there's a weakness, we're going to attack it. It's kind of like in football when you get the bad cornerback, backup cornerback, they can't cover anybody. Kind of McKelvin, the guy from the Giants this past week that the Giants picked on. This guy was a cornerback, kept his head down on every play, and balls thrown his way. So the Giants kept attacking. It's going to have to be the same way in baseball. The teams that make that adjustment and realize how to attack a weakness will the teams that survive and go on. We got too many teams now that just let the players do whatever they want to do, and it eventually comes back to haunt them. And I think that was a little bit something what happened to the Mets this year as well, from one of their problems.
Yeah, the Mets clearly had a lot of problems getting runners home. That was huge for them. So, based on a couple of your comments, so are you not a big fan of analytics, or
no,
you
I'm
believe
not, because the analytics have always been there. I'm not against analytics. I talk, like I said, all the numbers that are coming out. They've always been in the game. They just found new names for them. It's got to be a mixture, and analytics are low on. They don't have to be the overwhelming thing. It's not just numbers. So, I think there's ways to attack baseball, like the shift, for example. These teams, it would be, what Tony Gwynn would hit against the shift? They tried to shift him, he'd hit about 450. These teams, they come up with something new, which they think is new. They over apply it, and teams don't react to it. If the team doesn't, the shift works great if the team doesn't react to it. I agree wholeheartedly with the shift, but sometimes I'm watching a game in the middle of the season, and these are the things that get lost, Wayne. I'll be watching a Yankee game, and it'll be over shift. There was a time, I won't mention the player's name, but there was a time this year I'm watching, they're playing the A's. They go into this crazy shift against a guy who's hitting 190 against with a hard-throwing pitcher on the mind. Might have been Miller. And, of course, the guy just tapped the ball the other way, knocked in the run, and the A's came on to win that game. So analytics are good. Shifting is good if there's some common sense, but there's got to be more common sense to the game. And the reason why all these GMs are getting hired now that are young guys like this, because they speak the same numbers, language as the owners, and that's what's happening. And as a result, and the Cubs have done a nice job of mixing analytics with real scouting and real players. That's why a guy like David Ross is so invaluable. The Cubs probably get too much credit as being an analytic-driven team, and I believe they're actually a scout-based team. And if you look at most of the World Series victories for the last few years, scout-based teams are the teams that win the World Series, and with guys that go the extra mile. And I think that's the analytics thing is a great toy. A lot of writers have fallen in love with it, but it's way overplayed.
No, I agree. It's like you say, it's a tool, and I've been saying this for years now. I said you gotta mix the eyeball with the numbers. You use them as a tool, and you know what? I go through this on my own job. I mean, I'm a regular working guy, and I'm a technician, and it's like, and my supervisor is always saying, well, the data says, and I go, and I always cut him off, and I go, famous last words. So,
well, that's a great comparison. I think that's a great point. There's got to be, and you use, I use the word common sense, and that's what you're using. You're using common sense to battle the problem. If you just went with data, then you're going to wind up with all these teams that are supposed to be good, and they're not. And for example, the A's. I mean, that movie came out how long ago? That movie came out about Moneyball? Yeah, there was some.
I don't know, and it's funny because I read the book years ago, and then somebody made mention of something in the book, and for some reason in my head I couldn't remember it, and I actually just started reading the book recently. I have it in one of my bathrooms, so and I'm going back at it, and I'm saying like, wow, I've actually keep pestering Michael Lewis to get him on the show because I want to ask him, what he thinks, like how it all turned out, and if he agrees with me that, hey, they were on to something to a point. To a point,
but it's always been that way in baseball. And here's the point. Here's the bottom line, Wayne. You don't even have to get him on the show, that's since he wrote Moneyball, and we heard all about Moneyball and how great it was, and Billy Beane was the godfather of Moneyball. How many world championships have the A's won? Zilch. Okay, so take your Moneyball and use it as it should be used, but it's not the be all end all. And if anything, the A's are getting worse because of Moneyball. And they trade players like Addison Russell, and some of the moves they've made. Zobrist, they get rid of guys. They don't have the faith to stay with
Donaldson.
One after another. Donaldson's a great example. And I covered the Blue Jays right on through. And Donaldson was the guy that played with more heart against the Indians than anybody I saw. He tried to keep that team alive, but Batista dogged it up as well as did Encarnacion, and they would kind of just like done. They were done being, with the season. And because the Blue Jays were a better team than the Indians, if you really step back and look at it, just like the Red Sox were. The Red Sox ran out of gas at the end of the year. This is what again, getting back to Moneyball, they can look at the numbers all they want, but here's what you project. When you got young players like Jackie Bradley Jr., Mookie Betts, great young players, I'm not taking anything away from them, but they run out of gas at the end on a long season, and that's what happened. The scouts, when you start, and again, I hang out with scouts, I see them all the time, when scouts really, they'll study a team that they may play in the playoffs for a good month. So they have everything down where those guys' weaknesses are, and that's what they did. And the Indian scouts did a tremendous job against both the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. And then the players followed through with the plan. Frank Cohen did a nice job as well. And boom, all of a sudden that's what happened. So like I said, it's too much, and I'm tired of hearing it. And it's a great story, and it was a good book, a good movie, but it's not reality.
Right. Want to touch on something else. I asked you we were talking about predictions. Postseason time. Rookie of the year, MVP and Cy Young. Who do you got from each group? I've been asking everybody this.
Yeah, I'm not great at that stuff.
Okay. You don't. I'm not asking for prediction. Yeah. Okay, I wasn't asking for prediction. I was just asking who you felt. But if it's not something that you're okay.
I have to look at the list, but I look at team stuff. I don't look at individual stuff as much as
okay.
I don't want to go there.
Another question we've been asking everybody, and probably since mid-season. If you're the Angels, do you trade Mike Trout?
Yes, that's a good question, and that we'll delve into. Again, a lot of these awards are based on, first of all, writers' wins, things like that. And but Mike Trout, why would I? Yes, he's a great player, but I would trade Mike Trout because I think the Angels can't win with him. So at some point, if you can get the haul that you need to get, you trade him. And the first place I look is the Phillies. Now, do the Phillies have enough talent to make such a trade? I don't know, but that's where I look. And Billy Eppler, Billy is a very big analytical guy. We'll see where he goes. He was assistant GM with the Yankees, and we'll see what direction he goes in. But I would trade Mike Trout, and I would, but only if I could get what I really need. And again, I'd have to know the Angels organization inside and out. They just made the deal for Cameron Maybin. Okay deal. I'm not excited about it that much, but it's an okay deal. And it looks to me like they're trying to get Trout a little more help. I think what they'll do, Wayne, is they will try to, improve this year a little bit, try to get Trout a little bit more help in the lineup, see where they go with that. And if that doesn't work out, maybe next year or the year after. But it's almost like that organization just seems stuck in such a rut. And a lot of it has to do with the owner. I think he's done a really bad job with things, from everything from personnel. There were a lot of great people that worked there that he got rid of. He changed a lot of things up, and it's all come back full circle on the Angels, and they become a dog of a franchise.
Yeah, from what I've read, he's sort of like Steinbrenner of the '80s.
Yeah, he's but maybe worse. Like, there were little things like a long time secretaries and people like that he got rid of. Changing the press box because his wife didn't like the fact that the writers had good seats, is what I was told. There's a lot of little things there, and it's just a total tangent. But the best press box, again, people say, "Oh, well, you're worrying about writers' problems." Well, I'm a writer, of course I'm going to worry about writers' problems. But the best press box, without question, is the San Francisco Giants press box. It's right there behind home plate, about 25 rows up. You're able to interact with the fans. They're a little bit lower than you, but they can come by and say hi. They can look and they say. And I asked some Giants people years ago. I said, "Why didn't you guys?" And they've actually shrunk in the last few years, which I get. You got to sell those tickets. You got some great property there that you got to sell, but they still they basically kept the integrity of the press box. And I said. And I asked somebody once, I said, "Well, why didn't you build the press box in such a fashion?" Because most of the press boxes now are being built way up high or way out, some are even going to the outfield, which is fine. They can put us wherever they want. We'll still write the story. But it's great to be in a great press box because you can get more of the action. And I asked the Giants official, I said, "Why did you do it that way?" And they said, "Well, we felt in years that when the team wasn't really good, if the press has a really good, close view of what's happening, they can write more about the game. And maybe less about why we suck." And it's really it was a genius move by them. But as a result, though, the Giants have always had pretty much, especially in the even years, have been pretty solid. They've been a tremendous team. So it's the best of both worlds. It's, to me, and I can recommend this to any fans because it's a question I often get, but what ballpark do you like the best? AT&T Park, to me, is the best park in the world to go. There's such an energy there and a flow. That's phenomenal, and it's a beautiful park. And part of that is they also want the press box to be part of the viewing area for the fans. Like, oh, there's the media. There's like a big name in San Francisco is Ray Ratto. He's a writer out there, a TV guy. And there's Ray Ratto. Let me go ask him a question. So. There's so many levels where you can make the game better for the fans and also make it better for the media so we do a better job of doing our jobs. That's also been lost in the sauce a little bit.
Right. So, okay, I'm not going to keep you much longer. I know you, like I said, you've had a long 6 weeks. As a matter of fact, we had Jerry Krasnick on I don't know, maybe 8-9 months ago, and it's like I observed. I said, there's no off season for you guys anymore with Twitter and just the constant things flying off of off of the internet. It's I would imagine being a sports writer is, I don't know, it's almost like going in a restaurant. You get there's it's like no breaks. So,
yeah, it's similar like that. And Krau's a good friend of mine. And matter of fact, one of the days we were at the ALCS, we hooked up. Me and him and a couple other writers went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Spent a few hours there with the people at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and gave us some great insights to music as well. And it was kind of fun stuff. How certain songs are written in the back. It's phenomenal. And we also got a vault tour, so we got to see. So that, there's a lot of great things in my job as well. But that also helps you write better about the team and the city that you're in. I won't go into details about it, but there were some great little points that I will use in the future in stories. Like, there was a great songwriter in the 50s. I can't think of his name right now. It's not coming to me right now, but Doc something or other, and he was a polio victim, and he got married, and all the great artists came to his wedding. It was like a local wedding. I think he was a Brooklyn guy, matter of fact, and he'll come to me as soon as we end the show. But I'm sure I could Google in 2 seconds to find it. But anyway, the wedding goes on, and all these great people there. Bob Dylan has called this guy the greatest songwriter of all time, so that gives you an idea of what he's all about. And the wedding goes on, and all these tremendous, famous people dance. You know, they take a dance with the guy's wife because the guy has polio, so obviously it's hard for him to get out on the dance floor. So during the whole wedding, he's on the wedding invitations. She's writing down some ideas for songs, you know, because he's sitting there living this experience. The wedding ends. It's a great night for everyone. A little while later, the songwriter writes the song, publishes the song, and of course, it's Save the Last Dance for Me. So it's there's some fascinating stuff out there in all ends of our business.
Wow. Okay, listen. Oh, one quick question. Okay. Well, actually, I just want to for my local people here. All right. You say you're convinced that Cespedes back to the Mets is a done deal. And not going to ask for predictions of moves, but do you have an idea of what direction you think the Yankees are going to take this offseason?
They'll take the obvious direction. They usually do. They'll re-sign Chapman. They'll get some kind of starting pitcher. They'll spend some money, not a ton of money, but getting Chapman back will be a big difference. And they'll be okay. They'll be okay. But I still think the Yankees. When the Yankees haven't won a playoff series since 2012 now, and they're going to try to go with the kids. Clint Frazier, I spent time with him in the organization, right before the season ended. I went down to Florida where they were having instructional league, and I spent some time with him. And I'm impressed with him. He's the kind of kid that's going to bring a lot of energy to the Yankees. So I think they're going to still try to get younger, but also do the obvious and bring back a guy like Chapman.
Right. But you think they realize that they're 2 years away, and next year is probably not the thing to shoot for, and to sacrifice youth and prospects to go for it.
Exactly. I think they're going to go with the kids for a while, see where they take them. And then we'll see where it goes from there. And but as a Yankee fan, I still think it's going to be a difficult year because the kids, we've seen it. Is Gary Sanchez going to have the same impact that he had? I doubt it. Will he continue to? They'll figure out some weaknesses in his swing, and they'll go from there.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm a Yankee fan myself, and I'm the Yankee fan that's been saying for years, like, tear it down. I'm okay if you tear it down.
The real Yankee fan doesn't mind doing that, and that's what they don't understand. Right. They've never understood that as an organization. They're I always say the new Yankee Stadium is Disney World Yankee Stadium. It's not really like Yankee. It's kind of like Yankee Stadium, but it doesn't have the same feel, the same energy. And it's ironic that they're doing these changes now to a stadium they spent a lot of money on to make it more fan-friendly, when the reality is, put out the product, people will come. It doesn't matter, and that's what all these teams, they can have all the surveys they want and do things with fans, but the bottom line is, you put out a winner, people will come. Look, people came in Cleveland; they weren't coming for years. Became a great night out, and of course the Cubs. The Cubs are gonna. I talked to a guy in Chicago the other day, and it was he's actually from New Jersey now. He lives in New Jersey, but he's been on the Cubs season ticket list since the time he's 17. He's 32 now, and they said by the time he's 46, he should be able to get season tickets. So it might be longer now.
Like
the answer to my question,
used to be.
The answer to Save the Last Dance for me is Doc Pumas. I had a chance to Google it. Doc Pumas, Pumus. So pretty interesting.
Okay. Doc Pumas. Pumas. Okay.
P-O-M.
So yes. Okay. And it's funny. My thoughts on the new Yankee Stadium is it's a shopping mall and a food court with a baseball park inside. So
it's exactly what it is. It's a very expensive shopping mall. Very expensive.
Yes.
Shopping mall.
But I do believe that a lot of the knee-jerk Yankee fans actually embraced the beginning of the rebuild. So I hope that that bodes well. And the Yankees, it looks like they're getting away from there. I always said it's their business model. You know, they spend, they put these, you know, they put the highest priced stars, the big stars on the field, and even if it doesn't translate into wins or championships, it's translated at the box office, and it's their business model. And I'm glad to see them getting away from it.
Well, I'll leave you with this, Wayne. There's no doubt in my mind that they're going to sign Bryce Harper. You know, so it'll change when Bryce Harper gets there. You know, his father was a Mickey Mantle fan. He's always said the right things in Washington. I've had many conversations with him about how the Bonner family is treating great. He wants to win for Washington, blah, blah, blah. And he does until his contract runs out. When he's a free agent, he'll want to win for the Yankees. And he'll want to come to the Yankees, and the Yankees will give him the kind of money that will make him come. And I think that's what you're seeing a little bit too with this changeover and kids. I think the Yankees will get themselves close, and then that'll be one of the moves that puts them over the top. They won't be afraid to spend the money because the fans will respond to that move, and we'll see where it takes them.
And they'll have a lot of money off the books by then.
Yes.
So, all right. Kevin, thank you very much for coming on, particularly on such short notice. And I hope we can get you back soon in the future.
Okay, Wayne. Take care, and tell your partner I said hello, and next time we get all three of us together.
Great. Thank you. Have a good night, Kevin.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye. Well, that wraps it up for this week. I was thrilled to have Kevin. I read his columns all the time in the New York Post, and so, like I say, it was just great to speak to him, and very insightful, very knowledgeable, and most importantly, very honest. So we'll see you next week. Thank you again, and good night, everybody.